We are now in session. Man, we have a very, very special guest tonight. But before I introduce her to the audience, I want to say welcome to our podcast. If you're new to the channel, please tune into our past viewings and guests on our shows. We're on every platform: Facebook, IG, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok as well. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Our returning follower, we love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to us, okay? Man, today we have a very, very inspirational, motivated session, and I would love to introduce you to everybody to Pahoua Lor, who is our first Hmong American female judge in California. Right? Am I saying that right?
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is my first podcast, so I'm really excited to be here with everyone.
I got to behave this podcast, guys, so you won't hear much from me.
We don't want Toby getting in trouble.
I don't want to complicit myself.
Yeah. Well, Pahoua, we really appreciate you coming on our show, on our session, but can you just briefly kind of introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, my name is, I pronounce it Pahoua. I've pronounced it Pahoua since I was a little girl, but in Hmong it's actually Pahoua. And I grew up here in Fresno pretty much, and I am, like you mentioned, the first female Hmong judge in Fresno, and also the first female Asian judge for the Fresno Superior Court. So that's pretty exciting.
That's historical.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you've practiced being a lawyer. Am I saying that right? A lawyer or an attorney for how many years?
Yeah, so I kind of lose track of things, but it's about 13, maybe almost 14 years I've been an attorney. Yeah.
Wow. And Toby, you have any questions for her, Toby?
No, I'm just thinking, man, your room is hot, bro. You have the AC on or something?
Oh, you must be heated because she's standing next to you.
Oh, it must be, huh? Must be.
Yeah. No, going back, you're first Hmong American, right? Yeah. Your family came as refugees to the state here?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh.
And my family came over in the late 70s. And I was born in Iowa. We stayed out in Iowa, Wisconsin area until I was about 4 or 5, and then we moved to the Fresno area.
Oh, nice.
So,
Is it family? You have family out here then? When you guys moved out here?
I do. Pretty much my entire family from my mom's side and some of my dad's family members as well. So it was really nice. We actually came to follow my maternal grandparents. So my mom's grandma and grandpa, or her parents, I should say. Yeah.
You guys flew or you guys drove the whole family down
here? No, we didn't drive. So I remember getting on a plane with my grandpa and my sister. We were the first ones to come.
Really?
And then my parents drove later. So yeah, definitely remember the plane ride with my grandpa.
As a kid, you must be excited getting on the plane and like, man, this is a bird,
You know what I remember? Getting on the plane and getting my purse stolen. That's what I
Really?
remember.
Wow.
Yeah. So my grandpa, we were at the airport and I had to use the restroom. And so my grandpa said, take your sister into the restroom. We went into the restroom and I had a little purse that my mom just gave me. And I remember coming out and going back into the stall and it was gone. So that's what I remember, not so much the plane ride.
Wow. So
You were upset the whole ride.
The whole ride.
That's right.
I remember this for the rest of my life.
And I sure did.
First experience.
So you basically grew up in Fresno. What was it like growing up in Fresno? Is there any changes or anything that you kind of saw that was? What's the question I'm asking?
Difference in today, like the upbringing of the Hmong community, is it different?
She's a
today?
judge, guys. I'm nervous. I'm trying not to say it.
Yeah. Was it different? Was it different before compared to today, the Hmong community?
Well, let me first kind of paint the picture about kind of like what it was like growing up, and maybe you guys can relate. My parents, back in those days, the Asian gangs were really prevalent. And so my parents were really nervous and worried about the Hmong gangs. And so they tried to isolate us as much as possible.
Sure.
And they thought that was going to be the key to fixing, problems with wanting to do bad stuff or getting into trouble.
Sure.
So growing up, we were a part of the Hmong community in the sense that they would take us out to functions, but we would come back and it was very isolating because they would be like, you can't hang out with anybody. You just have to stay home and you have to do these certain chores and you got to go to school and come back. So as you guys may or may not be able to relate, very strict upbringing.
Sure.
And so what I see now is that, especially with those my age and my generation, a lot more relaxed and perhaps a little bit more lenient with our own children.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you could even think about, like, the Hmong community then. It was big. You were, like, the first, or your family was the first wave of Hmong Americans,
Pretty
right?
much. Yeah, pretty much. I remember stories that my mom used to tell about how her and her sisters were teenagers and they would have suitors from all over the United States coming and just sitting and courting them, because back in those days, you just come and you sit at the girl's home and you chit chat with the dad, and that's how you kind of like, steal a quick glance at the daughter or whatever. And so she would talk about how every weekend they would have suitors come over from all over the United States. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What made you get into the field that you're in? Is that something that you had growing up and it was kind of instilled in you, or was that something that happened in your life that kind of pushed you toward the field that you're in?
Yeah, we're about to get deep, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to get deep.
Yeah.
So what I saw growing up was just a lot of hurt. I think, especially from the elders, you could see them navigating the different communities and the different systems and having a lack of not understanding the language, not understanding the culture. And that, for me, I kind of took in and I kind of saw those things and I thought about how unfair it was. I also saw, different things growing up that just made me think that I want to be an agent of change. I want to help people, and that's what really kind of inspired me to continue in the legal field.
Wow. Like, a lot of injustice for our color folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think even like today's landscape, like, you hear about it on the news all the time. And to hear you, and that's the reason why we wanted to bring you on the show, because you're the first color female to represent our community, represent the whole community. And that's very inspiring, you know what I mean? So the school, let's go back a little bit. How long did you have to go to school to become an attorney?
So my educational background, I went to Clovis West.
Okay.
I grew up near Manchester Mall, and so my school of choice, my home school would have been Fresno High. But my mom was so afraid that I was going to get into the wrong crowd, which I read books and I was a nerd, so I don't know why she felt that way. So she shipped me out to Clovis West, and she's like, go all the way out there. And, and so I went to Clovis West and I graduated in 97, and then I went to UC Davis, and then I graduated in Davis, and I came back to Fresno, not wanting to come back because I had experienced being on my own in the Sacramento Davis area. And so I came back because of family, and Fresno is just home to me. So once I came back, I attended San Joaquin College of Law, and I did the 5-year program there, and I also became a single mom. So I became a single mom, and my daughter's dad and I, we weren't married and we didn't stay together. And so that was very difficult, but I did have the support of my family, and that really helped.
While you were going through school?
I gave birth, and 3 days later, I started law school.
Wow, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I share these things because I want people out there who say if they make a mistake in life, or they have a little hiccup, or they trip up.
Bump in the road.
A bump in the road. I want them to understand that it's just a bump in the road. Pick yourself up. If you still want it, if you have a vision, just continue to work hard. And one day the stars are going to align and everything's going to work out. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What propelled you through college? I mean, I'm pretty sure during that part of your life, it was pretty difficult. So what kind of kept you going? Was it I need to be an agent of change, or was it something that you needed to make your parent proud? Because, a lot of Asian parents, they're kind of like, well, you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, you need to do this. Was it an expectation that you needed to meet?
I don't know if it was an expectation. My parents always stressed education. So they always, even though they were very strict and they didn't really allow us a lot of social flexibility, they would allow us flexibility when it came to our education. So for example, if there was like a fair going on and the teacher was giving extra credit, like for example, the Civil War reenactment. I don't know if you guys remember that at Kearney Park.
Yeah, Kearney Park, down the street.
Yeah, so my mom, they were very strict, but if I needed to go for extra points, they would be like, go do it, right? So in those ways, they were very flexible. And what really just kept me going was really just wanting to help people and to all the different people who ever doubted me, who maybe have said something that made me feel like I was inferior or less than. I wanted to be able to prove to them that I have worth, you know?
Prove the haters wrong, guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's so amazing to hear, you know, and I think a lot of folks that are tuning into this, they can definitely relate to some of that. You know, there's fire in our community and we need that. Talk about school. You went there for 5 years. And what did you get? Did you get your bachelor at Davis or master's?
No, I got my bachelor's at Davis.
What did you get it in?
I got it in sociology. So
Because isn't Davis a engineer type school and more of health?
And medical.
Medical, yeah.
But I chose Davis because it reminded me of Fresno.
Okay.
So it had cows.
Cows,
It had a pho restaurant.
Yeah.
So I really liked the small town environment.
Yeah.
I toured Berkeley. I did not like Berkeley. I didn't apply to Berkeley.
Isn't Berkeley a law school?
Yeah, so Berkeley has their undergrad,
Yeah.
and then they also, you know, obviously it's a San Francisco area,
Yeah.
so they have different law schools up there as
sure.
well. But I just really gravitated towards that because it felt homey. It felt like I could adjust there and be away from home.
I see.
So.
And then when you got accepted to San Joaquin of Law, which is down the street from our house here,
Yeah.
or were you the only Southeast Asian or Hmong person in like class?
So that's a really good question. So actually, there were probably about 3 or 4 of us that started when I first started. And then by the time we ended, I was the only one that Southeast Asian who graduated from law school. In my class itself, I believe there were only about 2 Asians, myself included, in all of the law school. Now it's a lot more diverse, so I'm very proud of the law school, but at the time that I went, there was not a lot of diversity. And I, at the time, like ages and dates run all together in my head, but I think I was about 25 or 26 at the time, and I was like the second youngest because the average age at the time was probably in their 40s.
So you're telling me
So-
Toby
That
has
went
a
to school.
chance to become a lawyer?
Everyone has
don't
a
think
chance.
so. Man, Toby, you should
Everyone
become a
has
lawyer,
chance.
dude.
Yes,
Toby
everyone
has
has
a chance
now.
Yeah.
I have a chance to be many things in my life. How competitive was that school? Like, do they challenge you guys and pit you guys against each other? Or?
No, it was a really good learning environment, and it didn't feel like that at all. I will say that I was a single mom, so it was very tough because I had to balance raising my daughter and then also going to school. And I was very fortunate that my parents were very supportive. So I worked like 12, maybe 20 hours a week. And they were very supportive financially and just being able to help watch my daughter when I did like the study nights and the study sessions. So that really helped. Yeah.
When you graduated, did you get a job right away, or do you practice for your bar, right? You take your bar exam?
Yeah.
You pass?
Yeah. So what you do is, in order to become a licensed attorney, you have to, after you graduate, study for the bar exam, which, again, I'm going back, and if I'm mistaken, forgive me, it's been a long time. But the bar exam is 3 days, and they don't tell you what subjects are on the bar exam, so you have to study for everything.
Wow.
And you have a writing portion, a multiple choice portion, and I can't forget, it's been so long. And then you take the exam, and then you still have to wait months before you get the results.
Wow.
Whoa.
So I actually, and because my life is like an open book and I want people to know and there be transparency, I didn't pass on the first time. I didn't pass on the second time. I passed on the third time. So the first time I took it, mind you, I had my daughter and I went up to Davis. So I left her here in Fresno and I went up to Davis, and I lived up in Sacramento for about a month studying, which was the hardest time of my life because I was away from my daughter and there was no FaceTime. Skype had just come out.
Yeah.
So I tried the Skype thing and it was very emotional. And so that was very difficult. But when I went to go and study for the bar exam, when I was doing the practice exams, because I had been a single mom and I was like studying and just trying to get by, I felt like in the study session, I was learning all over. It was almost like, okay, Pahoua, get your stuff together. And this is, you got to just start studying and get it together. And so I came close, but I didn't pass the bar. And then the second time, I already knew I wasn't going to pass because I was faking every illness under the book. It would be time to open up the books and I'd be like, I have a headache, I have a migraine, I got to go to the doctors, because my self-confidence was like in the ground.
Sure.
And then the third time, I worked for a couple attorneys at the time. And the attorney was like, you need to take time off to go study. And I said, oh, no, I can work and I can study. And he said, no, you're going to take time off to go study. So I was here in Fresno. I did not take a month off like I did before in terms of going to Davis. And my daughter stayed with my sister. And I would go every day to the Wilwood Park Library. And I would get up at like 8 in the morning. And then I would stay there until 5 or 6 to study. And then I would go home. And then I would pray at night, get on my knees in the dark, and I'd pray, and I'd get up and I'd do that every single day. And the third time, I just knew that it was going to happen, and it happened. So, yeah, it was a great feeling.
Wow. That's very challenging to fail and then like, man, I got to go back and take it again. And then once you get that second result, like, man, I got to do it again. So it kind of propel you to be more tenacious in going after it and finishing. How did you feel when you passed?
So I was actually in the Bay Area visiting a girlfriend at the time, and I for some reason had decided that I was going to take the Amtrak back home. So the news came out, I had checked, I had passed, and then I'm on the Amtrak crying. So people are looking at me like, who died? Like, seriously, who died? And I'm looking out the window and tears are streaming down my eyes, and I'm just so happy. So I knew exactly where I was when I found out that I passed. So.
Right.
Did
you always wanted to know that you wanted to be a lawyer?
I did. I did very early on, probably in about the 6th grade or so. So a story that I share, which is like full circle with Somerset. Lucky and I are connected with Somerset. My birthday is actually coming up on Sunday, November 19th. And when I was 13, my uncle was driving at Somerset with his friends, and he wasn't engaged in the best activities, and he was actually shot and killed on my birthday. So that kind of propelled me because that was the first time that I witnessed pain, and I couldn't really understand that pain and why it was so painful. And I think when I was looking at my parents and my grandparents who had lost their son, I started to realize just how tragic it was, right? So they left the country, they came over to a new country, they didn't speak the language, they were just trying to get by. My grandparent was a janitor at one point. They were doing things that in their country, perhaps they were entrepreneurs, and here they are struggling to make a living on welfare and public assistance, and then they lose their son to the streets. So it's one of those things where as a kid, you can't put your finger on it, but you just know that like something doesn't feel right. And so at that age, I was like, well, what is a profession where I can do some real good and people will feel like appreciated, or they'll feel like their story's being heard. And then I thought I want to be an attorney. And so that started at that time.
Wow. Wait, so you grew up in Somerset?
No.
Oh,
well,
with your family?
I have family that grew up in Somerset. Actually, my husband's family grew up in Somerset too.
Wow.
So it was really interesting to come back to the Somerset community because it was like full circle coming home, especially to see such a community full of Southeast Asians who are vibrant, who are a family, who are living together. That was beautiful.
And for the audience that don't know, we're talking about Somerset. Somerset is an apartment complex that most refugees resettled when they came here to the United States. And even my family resettled there in the late 80s. So yeah, maybe Chong and his family probably knew my family too growing up, but we grew there, and that was like, most of the people, at that time had nowhere to go in Fresno, right? And it's a big Laotian, Hmong, and Cambodian community in Fresno here. So that's Somerset for you guys. Yeah.
And Lucky, the funny thing is, like, my husband comes from a big family, so he has I think it's like 9 or 10 siblings. And when I went back to go see the apartments at Somerset and to see the 2 bedrooms, I was like, oh my goodness.
How did we do this?
How did all the Asians fit in this little, that story where they all fit into the glove and then the glove explodes when the smallest, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, that's perseverance right there. We had to do what we had to do to survive. Man, that was tough.
Did you practice law in Fresno, or did you practice in Sacramento or Davis?
I did. So I opened up my office here in Fresno, and going back to Lucky's question about, did I get hired right away? The answer was no, because when I passed the bar, no one was hiring. There was, it was in 2010, I think it was 2009, 2010. And so there was a recession and people were not hiring. And so I had to, because I'm a single mom, I made flyers with my face on it, and I went to the Hmong stores and the Asian stores, and I tacked up my flyers, and then I paid I think it was $100 to go on the Hmong radio station, and I started just talking about know your rights and this is who I am, and then the phone calls started coming in. So, and then once I opened up the office, I expanded. So even though I was based in Fresno, I would take cases in Sacramento. I would go down south. I took a case in Inyo County, and because I don't have a good sense of direction, I thought Inyo County was a 45-minute drive. No. My husband drove me to Inyo County. He was very upset because it was not a 45-minute drive.
When you practiced law, did you start in defense as a defense attorney?
So I opened up and I had a general practice.
Oh, general practice.
Because there was such a need in our community, especially with not having a lot of Southeast Asian attorneys to begin with, and especially being Hmong, and there not being a lot of Hmong attorneys, and with such a large Hmong community needing someone who could understand and speak the language, I had a general practice, which meant that I pretty much opened up my door to being open to taking different areas of law. So I did family law, I did some criminal work, and I only did criminal defense. And then I did civil litigation, and then your car accident cases and all of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. Back to being a lawyer. When after you worked and you kind of figured you've been in this industry for a certain amount of years, and I remember you holding up a project at Somerset that year. It was very, very tough to see that group go through whatever they went through, right? How after all is said and done, how did you feel about the community responding to that type of incident that they had there?
I think that it was beautiful to see people come together to basically say, we understand human suffering, because what happened over there was human suffering. And especially to go out there and to see the Red Cross out there and the city come together. On one hand, it's very tragic, right? And on the other hand, it's beautiful to see so many people come out when there was a need. I would go out there, and Lucky, if you remember, people had bonfires going out, and they were sharing their food. And I remember going out there to talk to the people that lived at Somerset, and even if they didn't have a lot, they would bring me vegetables and they would bring me rice. And that's the beauty of our Lao and Asian community in general, our Hmong community. That's just the beauty, because we love each other. We love family. We're real big on that.
And I think, even working collaboratively with you during that project, at Somerset, and then with Zach too, we knew that it was a moment for our community to come together, and for folks that are watching this too, there's about, 500 residents or more at Somerset, the complex, and the gas line went out. Right, there was no gas, so that means no hot water, no cooking. So people really had to figure out how they're gonna survive. And then these church and organizations came together to provide hot water and food for the people, but also tried to make, culturally food. Because our Lao community couldn't eat the beans, they couldn't eat certain things, and we had to go tell them like, no, you guys, they're not going to eat this food. We need cultural food. So they started frying fish. They started making steamed rice, sticky rice to serve the community, and I think that was the monumental part about this whole coming together and supporting the community, like you kind of share, Pahoua. So for the audience, that's what Somerset Crisis was. Back in 2016 and 14.
Mind you, it was in the winter time, right?
Winter time.
It was during the
winter.
time.
And people know in Fresno during November, December, it's cold.
It gets
Very cold.
During that time,
Really
I think
cold.
we had some freezing temperatures too.
Yeah.
But I think that's why there's a lot of beauty. And we talked about this off the air, about this podcast and what you guys are doing, is to be able to share these stories and connect us. I mean, it's really important for us to really learn from each other and uplift each other, especially when sometimes, like there's been talk about the imposter syndrome, when you don't feel like you're enough, you're not doing enough, maybe you're not smart enough, you're not all these things. And this is an arena, this podcast, and me being in this position to be able to let people know we are enough. We are here, we're American, we are enough. Yeah.
So Toby wants to be a lawyer now.
You could do it, Toby. I'll help you with that letter of reference.
Oh, nice. Any particular challenges that you faced during your career as a lawyer? Like any particular case that was kind of difficult, or was there any client that was kind of difficult as far as, man, I don't know where to go, or with this any particular cases that you came across?
Yeah. So let me tell you guys in general about the difficulties with this profession and being a minority female, right? So mind you, it's not that long ago. So this is probably about 15 years ago, 13 years ago. I lose track of time. When I would go to court, they would mistake me for being the interpreter.
Ooh.
There's nothing wrong with the interpreting profession. It's a much needed profession, especially now when I'm in my position and I can see when litigants come in and we don't have interpreters and we're waiting on interpreters, how just important interpreters really are. But just the fact that you would go in and people would automatically assume that you can't be the attorney, you have to be here to interpret.
Right.
And so you take that experience and you go, okay. And so I always feel like life and what motivates us is a collection of events or a collection of things that we go through.
Right.
So that's something where I would say, okay. And then I remember one experience in Merced when I was a attorney in Merced, and I went to my first deposition, and I remember the male attorney, who was much older than me because I was in my 30s at the time. He kind of leaned over during a deposition. He said, "Can you shoe?" And I thought, well, you would never say that to a male attorney. Yeah. And I was there with another African American attorney from our office. I think it was just the two of us at that time. But things like that you just kind of go, wow, that's nice, but I'm going to continue to work hard. So you have those collection of experiences. I say in terms of clients, I mean, there's always difficulty with challenges with working with people, whether they're your clients or they're not your clients. What I found with the particular clients that I served, and just in general, is that obviously they're scared because nobody likes going to an attorney. Because once you're at an attorney's office, it's because you're dealing with a problem. So there was that challenge of having to just calm them down and say, okay, I'm here to shoulder your problems. Sure. So I'll try to figure it out, and you just relax and just do what I say. So there's that. And then there's just trying to explain it to clients in a way that they're going to understand. If I sit there and I use legalese words or legal words, they're not going to understand. But if I break it down and say, this is what this means, this is the process. So for example, at court, when people come in and I say, you have to serve the other side, I explain it to litigants that if you don't serve the other side, they don't know there's court. And it's not fair to the other side because they don't have an opportunity to defend.
Yeah, sure.
If you serve them and they know and they choose not to come, that's a different story. Yeah. But it's how you present it to people, right? So people will understand. It's not that they're not capable of understanding. It's that it's your job to communicate it in a way where they are going to understand you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. No, Toby and I do not like jury duty, right?
We don't.
And
We
had
hate jury
We
duty.
hate jury duty, and we always try to escape it every time. But we know we shared earlier.
You escape it.
I escape it every time. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to
Me
be.
too.
I do not want to be that lion. I'll be the first to raise my hand and go up and talk to that person. But you mentioned earlier as we were talking, having dinner, you shared. Can you share with the audience like the real purpose and the real meaningful thing for someone that looks like me and Toby, right? Mm-hmm. To engage with jury duty and how that is important to our community. Like, can you share a little bit in that context?
Yeah, we kind of talked about that off air, and jury duty is something that I am very passionate about going around and telling people, do not dodge your jury duty obligation. The whole purpose of a jury trial is to have a trial in front of your peers. So your peers can determine, based on the evidence, the testimony, and what is being presented, whether or not you, for example, committed the crime, or if it's a civil case, whether or not you suffered whatever it is that you say you suffered, right? So as an attorney, what I would see, and I as a judge have not had my first jury case yet, but as an attorney, what I would see sometimes is people would immediately try to dodge jury service, and they would like write out their list of excuses. I've got 3 kids at home. Yep. I've got 10 million jobs. I've got a sick mom. I've got stomach issues. And you always knew who was ready to go to dodge jury service. Right. And so
you could pick them out?
We definitly can.
Really?
We definitely can.
So
we're judging our jurors.
Really? So when they walk in, you could tell this guy's going to skid, this guy's going to... Really?
We try not
psychology,
to.
Psychology,
psychology.
We kind of pick up on things.
Yeah.
So the problem when people do that is, for example, if one of us is the defendant sitting in the hot seat, right? And hopefully we're not. But if we're sitting in the hot seat and we're a defendant or a litigant in the case, and the jurors who are supposed to be a community of our peers who are making a decision over us, if they don't look like us, you guys, they're not going to perhaps understand, okay, and be able to relate to us.
For sure.
So that was an important conversation that we had off the record is, look, hopefully we're never in that seat. But let's hope that if it's not us, or maybe it's our brother or our sister, our dad or our mom, that they're going to have people who reflect the community, who reflect them.
Sure.
So don't dodge your jury service. That is definitely not something you guys want to do. Right. It's not scary. It's you're there, you're listening to evidence. You are just as good as everybody else sitting in that seat. You are there to listen to the evidence and just make a determination. Yeah. So.
Wow.
All right, Pahoua, I won't dodge jury duty
Thank you. I'm going to hold you guys to it.
Yeah, I definitely
I'm going to hold you guys to it.
Duty next time.
Now, what is the jury selection process like as an attorney? I mean, when you see them, them in the box, I mean, there's certain things you look for, how their education level, is there anything specific that you look for on any case?
Yeah. So first of all, if Lucky didn't dodge jury service, he would know this portion of it. But jury selection process is when the attorneys have an opportunity to ask jurors questions and to connect with jurors. And based on responses, we might believe that, let's say, for example, if Toby or Lucky answered a question and we believe that he may have, or both of you guys may have some kind of bias against our client, or may not give our client a favorable response based on something you guys said or an experience you have, because as people, we all experience certain things. Yeah. So, for example, if it's a murder case, and let's just say that I had this tragic death that I just told you guys with my uncle, maybe that's not a good case for me because I immediately already have this emotion. So attorneys try to take jurors, remove jurors who they don't think are going to be a good fit. And so that jury selection process involves the attorneys asking questions of the jurors and a whole process going into the selection.
Wow. Now, is it the defendant or the prosecutor that get to pick the the jurors,
Both.
or is it both? Both.
Both. So both sides get to ask questions. We won't say too much because I want Lucky to go through the whole process.
Oh,
So Lucky
okay.
does the whole process.
You
It'll be like
you
a
have homework to
surprise
do,
ending.
bro.
It'll be
You have
surprising.
homework to do.
Get on a jury, Lucky. That's
Yeah.
your homework. But yeah, so both attorneys have an opportunity to ask questions, and then there's a lot of sidebars, and the judge and the attorneys will talk, and then they'll come back out and they'll excuse jurors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your first time doing that, how did you feel, and what was that process like when you were trying to pick? And like, were you nervous? How was that like?
Yeah, I was extremely nervous. I have to tell you guys, I told someone and they started laughing. They said, "No, Pahoua, are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah," because I felt like I was at the Supreme Court. I was like a robot. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was so full of emotions.
Anxiety.
Like, am I here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, am I really picking a juror? Yeah. So it was kind of exciting and it was nerve-wracking too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about representation that's very, very crucial and important in our community. I don't know, I think you shared that number earlier. Like, how many Southeast Asian judges are there in the whole United States?
I'm not sure how many in the United States, but I will tell you that for the Hmong community, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe 6 or 7 of us. And for my Lao community, there is the first Lao American judge in Oregon. I shared that with the two of you guys.
Yeah.
Female too.
What's her name? Do you know her first name?
I don't know her name.
Yeah. But she's in Oregon.
She's in Oregon.
We're hunting you down.
Yes.
We're gonna.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor.
Hunting you down.
Your Honor.
Go ahead and hit that.
It's okay. I need to hunt her down too because I would
Yeah.
love to connect with her and talk
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's another sister out there representing
Wow.
for the Southeast Asian community.
This is a funny question. You know, whatever that thing is called, right? What is
Gavel.
that? Huh?
Oh, the gavel.
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 It was like a fly
Okay.
swatter. I was like,
Yeah, the gavel.
Yeah.
Have you ever hit it so hard because whatever case or whatever you're doing, like, I can't do, right? Is that you're hitting it to stop the folks from arguing, right? The defendant and prosecutor from arguing, or is it more of controlling the court system? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so I have never hit my gavel at
Oh,
court.
really?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
a gavel that sits up and it's just like a presentation. It just sits there and looks pretty.
Okay.
So when I have moments and I've learned different techniques, and I hope that I'll continue to learn different techniques, but one of the techniques that I learned through some of the other judges is to have one of those squeeze balls. So when you get stressed out, you can squeeze. Also to perhaps, just kind of like breathe and maybe take a moment and get off the bench, but different techniques. But having a deputy in the courtroom definitely helps with, with that courtroom control.
That's your
too.
bulldog, huh? Go get him.
Like,
Wow. No, I always wondered that, dude. Like, I see Judge Judy or
I know she's
Mr.
always
Brown,
banging
right?
that thing.
They're always
You know?
banging. I was like, man, these judges are pretty ruthless. No, get attention in the court, So yeah, I wanted to ask you that funny question.
I got to try that one day. Maybe I'll try that tomorrow. Yeah.
I'm the man of the house right now, right? Lady of the house. Yeah, Toby, go ahead.
I was trying to think of a question. I
Yeah.
don't have any question.
No, like there's women and men and young folks, Southeast Asian folks, that maybe that want to get into this field. Like, what are your words for them, for the young folks that want to become an attorney one day and a judge one day?
So I say find somebody who's in the profession. When I was growing up, I didn't know anybody who was an attorney. I didn't know anybody who was a judge, right? So we just didn't have those professionals at that time.
Right.
We were very limited. So I had to find people to be able to kind of guide me. Those were my guidance counselors. Those were just people that I knew that I could talk to at the financial aid office to even talk about college, right? But now we're fortunate, and there are more professionals, such as myself, and the attorneys are growing in numbers in terms of Southeast Asian attorneys. So find somebody, ask questions, YouTube, go on podcasts, let them share about their experience.
Sure.
Because something I shared with you and Toby offline is that my days as an attorney doesn't quite look like what's on TV. I spend maybe about like 80% of my time as an attorney on the computer writing stuff. And then the other portion maybe going to court. And then as a judge, like I'm on my computer probably about like 90% looking at cases all the time. Even at court, we're all electronic now.
Yeah.
So make sure that you connect with somebody, because let's say you don't like it, right? Because you think that it looks like what it is on TV. And then once you like pay $100,000 for law school, and then you figure out, I don't like staring at a computer screen. I don't like dealing with people's problems. I don't want people calling me in the middle of the night when they're stressed. I don't want to come to these voicemails because they're having issues with their children or with their father of their children. Then you need to figure out, okay, is it something I truly like? And I encourage all young people to do that, not just in this particular profession, but just in general. You want to be a firefighter? Go talk to a firefighter, because what if you don't like it? You want to do a podcast? Talk to Toby and Lucky. Maybe you don't want to do it because it's too time consuming. But do your research and know your stuff before you just kind of dive in.
Any particular skill set that is like, in your experience, is required to be like a good attorney, to be a good lawyer?
I don't think that there's just one skill set. I have always told people that I don't think I am the brightest bulb out there. I don't think that I am the smartest person, but I do think that I'm willing to learn. I do think that I'm willing to try, and I really love people. I love talking to people. I love connecting to people, and I think that is my strength. So I don't think it's like one thing like, oh, you love researching. It's not another thing like, oh, you love reading. It's just, what is your strength? And then cultivate that. So
what they said on TV was wrong. You shouldn't be argumentative. You shouldn't be outspoken. You got to be able to do all of that. No, you got to be able to do this.
Master your craft.
That's true.
You know, you mentioned, like, we talked about school and stuff. How much did school cost you?
Oh my goodness.
We always hear that, oh, it's so expensive, right? Are there scholarships? Are there financial aid that for students to become like an attorney or a lawyer?
Yeah, so there's always financial aid and loans. There's always, stipends and all of that you can look into, but scholarships are available as well.
Really?
And I looked into scholarships when I was even going into my undergraduate studies, and so I applied for different scholarships. Scholarships are essentially money that people give you to go to school. They're taking a chance on you.
Yes.
So, and it's free and you don't have to pay back. So why not take the time to apply? Because you don't know if you're going to get it. Even those scholarships where you get a laptop, even those scholarships where you win $500, why not apply? It's people are taking a chance on you based on the story that you bring to the table.
Right.
So
when you went to San Joaquin College of Law, if Toby was to go today, how much would it cost him?
I don't know, because it's been quite a number
Over
of
100.
years.
Over 100.
They see me, they're gonna charge me more.
Yeah, they're charging more.
Bro, you at the wrong school.
Over 100, I would say, right?
I would say roughly.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Now, did you have to go to like Fresno State first, or did you could just go straight to law school?
Yeah, because I got my bachelor's from Davis. So then I had the bachelor's already. So then once I applied, it was just, okay,
So the prerequisites, like, is it all political sci or like law type courses?
So my first, when I first entered, there were some individuals who were doctors who had a med background.
Oh, wow.
So with law school, there's not one particular background. You can have a medical background. You can be a poli-sci.
Okay.
You can be an English major. You can be a bio major, and you can still go to law school. So there's not
way.
one like, this is what you have to do.
So I can become a
gotcha.
lawyer too.
Yes, you can.
Right
like,
there.
We're gonna start our own show.
Wow.
We're gonna defend
Have a
defend
whole-
everybody for
You
justice.
have a little law office, Pahoua and Lucky Law Office, man. There you go.
I want to be the guy that you send to go get to serve people.
Serve people. Yeah. You know, it's so amazing to hear your story. I'm capturing all this, right? I'm not dissecting everything, and how you are. I personally feel like you represent the Hmong community really well, and to hear your story on the news, to hear your story of you been appointed to be our first judge here in the Fresno County area, that's very inspirational, and it definitely puts our people on the map.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of when you go out into the community, especially in the Hmong community, are you being acknowledged in that way?
So I think that the community in general is very proud, and I'm very appreciative of the support that the community has given me. I would say this. I hope that when people are listening to this podcast, that they're just not looking at me as the representative of the Hmong community. I'm hoping that they see me as the representative of people who perhaps were judged or were thought that they were inferior or perhaps couldn't make it or perhaps overcame challenges.
Yeah.
I want to represent those people who feel like, I don't think I can do it.
Right.
I don't think I can go up against, all those other individuals, or I don't think I fit in.
Right.
And I want people to understand that I represent all those feelings and those people that just don't think they could have done it. And I did it.
That's
At
deep.
least, I got here.
Yeah,
You're not
I should say I
alone,
did
people.
it.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
That's deep.
There are like people in our community, like we don't have direction. We don't have
Yeah.
role models
Role models.
that kind of point us in the correct direction, right? And so in your experience, in our experience, we're navigating through life not knowing where to go, what to do. And so I think that now our generation, we're kind of forced to be the leader, say, hey, come down this path, because first generation refugees, we didn't know what we were going to do. Our parents could not teach us, hey, go here, but okay, they know education was important. They know you got to go get a job.
Yeah. So know your resources and tap into your resources.
Yes.
So like at Davis, I always had my eye on being an attorney. And so I always knew that that's where I wanted to go. So I first started out working at the not at the law library, at the library, and I would go shelve books. So I would make minimum wage, shelving books, putting books away. By the second year, I started looking at the student stipend jobs, right? The
Yeah.
work stipend jobs, the
work
work study jobs. Because the work study jobs, you can get paid to go into your field, right? So for me, I wanted to be in a law office, and they had work study jobs at law offices.
Wow.
So I could go in, and the attorneys and the law firms were motivated to hire me because they only have to pay half of that wage because
Yeah.
work study is going to pick it up.
Half, yeah.
So I got the benefit of getting paid to be in the area that I wanted to be to kind of learn. So there are resources out there. If you have a desire, you just have to figure out, how am I going to navigate these different areas to get to the resources to get me to where I want to be. That's what it comes down to.
How do you, as a judge, and do you have an 8 to 5 hour shift?
Yeah.
Do you?
So this is really interesting because when I was an attorney, I worked all the time.
Yeah.
So you don't have a schedule, especially being self-employed.
Yeah.
And as a judge, you pretty much, the courthouse is only open 8 to 5, and I do work beyond that. But my husband jokes and says I'm kind of a workaholic, and so I get to work probably around like 7:30, and then on the weekends, I'll still be kind of looking at stuff and looking at cases and stuff like that. So, but this is probably the closest 8 to 5 that I could have ever imagined for myself. Yeah.
The judges, I hate when they they call the attorneys up to the stand and they said, we're going on recess.
I hate
and
that.
I'm over here like, I got next. Why do you have to go on recess now, right? We're waiting here since 8:30.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
the
at
jury
11
selection?
Yeah. And they'll say, well, we're going to go to recess or let's meet in the back. We need to talk.
Yeah.
And they take 20, right? Do they actually go to recess? Do they actually take that break?
We don't take a break.
Okay,
So
okay.
when we have folks come, and I can only talk about my courtroom,
Sure.
when you take somebody back, it's because you need to talk about a case.
Okay.
So there might be a break time for everybody else in the courtroom, but we're constantly working.
So they're not hanging
So
out.
they're not hanging out.
okay.
They're not hanging out.
They're not hanging out talking about
So there's
their
no
weekend.
10-minute break. No.
No.
You don't
So-
clock out for lunch.
No, so kind of like what you were talking about with like juries,
Yeah.
with jury selection and stuff like that. And you guys were saying that there's moments where you guys see, and you guys probably will see the attorneys go back with the judges.
Yes.
And just know that when people leave for jury duty that day, the attorneys are still constantly working
yeah.
because they have to prepare for the next day. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I remember during one of our jury selection
Yeah.
process that I was in, we didn't get into the courtroom until later on in that afternoon.
Wow.
It was like 1, 2 o'clock or so, and they did recess lunch for us. We went back. They were still in the process of picking it. Then we went to the next day,
They were still.
and they were still picking the jury. And then after they picked, that's when the case started, like right away. So,
yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah.
people don't get to see.
For sure.
So yeah, so
wow, I thought just like you, man. I thought
Yeah.
you're taking breaks, like
breaks,
man.
yeah.
no.
Self-care, right? Talk about our line of work, your line of work, and I'm in the mental health, my line of work too. But what do you do for self-care to make sure that, like this is not so overwhelming? I have to balance. You balance a lot of things as a young person, with your daughter, with your parents, and traveling to school in Davis and studying. But what is your self-care now?
I think that really before when I was balancing being an attorney, it kind of took me away from having social relationships, right, with my peers, with my family sometimes, because I was always working.
Yeah.
So my self-care now is just like coming out here, enjoying time with you and Toby, enjoying time with my family, being able to give back to the community by sharing my story. That to me is self-care. Like it's not, yes, I go and I get my nails done and I go and I get pampered here and there, but I get more self-care from being around my family and my friends. Yeah.
So being present,
Yes.
is more fulfilling.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man. Also, I think I had one funny question in the back of my head, and I just can't kind of pinpoint it.
I'm trying to behave today, guys. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm trying to behave.
Toby's a little nervous today.
I'm nervous today, like, back
want a
then,
good sentence.
Well, no, because back then, right, the Asian community weren't very fond of law enforcement, lawyers, judges, and stuff, and now that stigma is changing, where we understand this is something that's important that we all need, to live in this country.
Yeah.
Back in Laos, they didn't have stuff like this, and so, growing up, my parents were like, oh, don't talk to the cops. Don't
say anything.
Don't say nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't say nothing. And realizing that's hurting us when there is a case against somebody or, and so everybody just hush. So, that's why I was like, oh, man.
And to echo that what Toby said, like our community, we don't know much about our laws, right? The laws here in America. Of course, it's not taught in our homes because our parents didn't know it. But, for the folks that even listening and watching this, like, Pahoua share, like this important to know their rules, whether it could be housing rules, whether it could be laws about yourself, your amendment rights are important, you know what I mean? And in America, everything is governed by the law.
Right.
Like you sue people, we're going to take you to court. Oh, I got to know what's going on, right?
Well, I think the problem back then was it was the culture clash, right? It was a culture and the rules within our culture that we were trying to assimilate to America and within their laws, and so everything was getting confused. It was difficult.
Yeah.
Was that something that you kind of came across as an attorney? I mean, trying to get everybody in line?
Yeah. Well, even growing up, right? Especially the era that I grew up in, you got a lot of mixed messages, right?
Yeah.
So you would get from my parents, go to school, they were proud when you did certain things and they'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. Why did you say that? Or why did you speak up? So it's very mixed messages, right? So on one hand, it's like, oh yeah, rah, rah, rah. On the other hand, it's like, oh, but just fall in line. Just fall in line. Why are you challenging it? So I think that was something going to the assimilation and trying to balance the dual worlds, right? One where I'd come home and it would be a Hmong household.
Traditional
household. And then I would go out here and it'd be like, hey, this is mainstream.
Yes.
Like I remember I graduated high school in 97, I think it was. And my mom, because they were so strict and I was the oldest, I cried because she didn't let me go to prom. Right?
Oh,
yeah, I wanted to go to prom because it was my senior year.
Mom, you hurt her feelings.
All those other years, she was like, no.
Trying to protect you.
And my senior year, I was like, I want to go to prom. Yeah. Everyone else is going to prom. And she was like, no, because she was just like, this is not, like, you don't do that. You don't go to those kinds of things. So it's like this clash, right? And then the more you go out there, you also see different things, like what Toby was talking about with law enforcement and having a misunderstanding and stuff. I shared the story about going to the Hmong New Year, and I was already a college student at Davis, and I came back, and my brothers, I was always worried about them being stereotyped and profiled, and I came from Davis, and we went to the Hmong New Year one year, and we got stopped at the gate. And they wanted to search my brothers, and they wanted to, basically interrogate my brothers as to gang status and all that. And I was like, wait a second.
For no reason.
For no reason.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, because they were wearing gang attire. And I said, gang attire? They're in gray. They were wearing gray clothes.
neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the officer said, well, gray is the new gang color this year. And I was like, you're not searching them.
Yeah.
But those things like
Yeah.
that the whole bridging the relationship between law enforcement and our community is something that still needs to be worked
Sure.
on,
Yes.
correct?
Sure.
And even with the judicial system, so bridging that relationship between the judicial system and our community needs to happen, because otherwise, in a situation like that, our parents probably would say, just be quiet, let them
Yeah.
search you. You're not a gang,
Yeah.
you didn't do anything
Yeah.
wrong, so everything's going to work out.
Right.
Whereas I think today we would have been like, wait a second,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel
Feel
right,
right, yeah.
So
You feel violated.
you feel
know?
violated.
My, my mom was like that. She was like, if you have nothing to hide with, just let them do what they got to do.
Yeah.
And it didn't sit right with me,
Yeah.
And so, for a while when I was a kid, I never said anything,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people are in that boat, and
Yes.
it's like, no, you have to speak. Now we're like, you got to
Yes.
speak up,
Yes. Yeah.
You with your job too, and the things that you do on your spare time, do judges get into like boards and stuff like that? Are you part of an extra board that you're
Yeah.
affiliated with?
Yeah, so there's restrictions that come with being
Sure.
a judicial officer, but there are some flexibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I can still enjoy some of the things that I used to do, which is good. But because there are rules and regulations, there are some things that I've had to step away from.
I see.
So,
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to separate that, and
Yeah.
being appointed as a judge. Can you explain how that process works?
Yeah, so you have to hit the 10-year mark in
10-year
order
mark.
for you to put in your application for consideration with the governor. And each governor is different. So if you put under this governor and let's say you didn't get an appointment and a new governor comes in, you have to put in a new application. So then you have to put in your application and you have to answer all their questions, and they ask about your case history and you have to attach that. And you send it to the governor's office. And then if you're fortunate enough, you go through what's called a vetting process, and they look at all of your information. And then they will send out a survey as part of like the Jenny Commission process. And they send out a survey to all the legal practitioners, so the attorneys, the judges in the areas that you practice. And those attorneys and judges get to weigh in on your character. They get to answer a bunch of questions. And then if you're fortunate, you get to go to an interview at the Jenny level, basically a panel of Jenny officers who interview you. And then if they feel like you are qualified overall, they submit you to the governor's office and you get a governor's interview.
Wow.
And then you interview with the appointment secretary. And then after that, you wait to see if you get a phone call. So
Wow.
it's a really lengthy process. Yeah, it's a very lengthy process. And so this is a position that I am very, very honored to be in. And I don't take lightly. I do feel like it is almost a responsibility. A judge that mentors me kind of phrased it that way, and I thought that's a great way to put it. It's a responsibility because I owe it to so many others. Toby, who wants to go to law school. I owe it to those individuals who just to tell my story so that they can understand and they can see me and say, I see her in me. I see her story in me, and I think I can do it as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Is that the overall end goal, is a judge, or is there another like level to this? Can you go from a judge, and what is the next level, or is that it?
No, so there's different positions, there's different elevations from just a superior court judge. You can become an appellate court judge. Then you can move forward. You can go to the state Supreme Court. On the federal level, you can be a district judge and you can kind of move up. So it just depends on what your career aspirations are so different things.
Wow.
Gotcha.
That's
Never
awesome.
knew that.
Yeah.
But they're pretty much similar. It's just different.
Yeah, different jurisdictions, different things that you handle, but essentially we're all doing pretty much the same work. We're reviewing cases, we're making decisions over different issues and lives and families and all of that.
So your experience as a lawyer, like family law that you did, is there anything in the federal side that deals with family law, or once you get to the federal level, it just changes into something else?
So with federal court, it deals with issues on a federal level, whereas with state court, it deals with state court levels. And so family tends to be state court, so it stays in state court. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does your experience dictate that?
No.
Like where you go, or-
No.
no?
You can look into the different process with being a federal judge, with being a state court judge, and then just kind of decide and navigate from there. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's different levels, elevation, but man, we are
How long
yeah.
can you serve as a judge?
So each appointment, state court appointment in California, is approximately 6 years.
right?
6
Yeah,
years?
6 years.
After the 6 year, is it another?
If you after the 6 years, you go back on the ballot, and if you are elected at that point, then you get another 6 years.
You get another
each term
term.
is 6
Oh, so you
years.
could actually keep reapplying after the 6 years.
Yes, you keep going.
There's no limitation.
No.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Gotcha.
No.
Wow. Well, I'm excited, man. I think we're almost wrapping up our time, huh?
Yes,
We're wrapping up our
actually
time.
at an hour.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was good today, guys.
Maybe we have a few more questions, huh, Toby, and then we wrap it up. What?
I mean, honestly, I'm just impressed at the
Yeah.
fact that, our people
Yeah.
is making strive in the community.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why we're doing this podcast is to bring people like you come on board and inspire the next generation.
Yeah.
And guide and point and say, hey, my story is just like you. We struggle. Our parents, came as refugees, and I'm here. Yeah. There are many people like us that isn't where they want to be in life. And so, and they're lost. And you gave a message that's really inspiring to many, many people and our audience, to me and to Lucky too, that we could be better too.
Yeah.
We could always evolve.
And remember, we're all great in our own different ways.
Right.
So I wouldn't be here if you guys didn't have a platform. And your platform is to get the word out and to inspire and reach people. So, like I said, we all are here for a reason, for a purpose. We just have to continue to strive forward once we figured out our purpose. Yeah.
Many people don't find out their purpose when they're young,
That's true.
in their
That's
teens,
true.
in their 20s. They don't find out
That's
until maybe later on, and it's still not too late. I could still become a lawyer.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, and even people watching this, looking, I look like Pahoua, she looks like me. I want to do the same thing. Now you have a mentor, somebody you can go to connect with. And that's what I think the beauty of our podcast, to really highlight that and to bring awareness, that now we have somebody we can go to,
Yeah.
Some last minute thoughts, Pahoua. I know we're going to wrap it up, but the last message that you want to share with someone who in the community now, not even Southeast Asia, just anybody that want to get into this line of work, what is your message to them?
So let me leave a message to all audience members, not about just this line of work. This girl, your sister, your daughter, your auntie, her first job was at Summer Youth scraping gum underneath
Oh, I did
desks.
that too.
So
I did
remember,
that too.
at
Yeah.
14, they paid us to go and scrape gum. This auntie, this sister, this daughter worked at Pizza Hut. This girl did many different jobs. And so what I want to leave the listeners is, you can do it. I was a single mom in law school, and I wasn't just a single mom. I was an unwed single mom. So I got knocked up pregnant and I had my baby. And I could have said, this is it. Go find a job at Target. Go do this and just suck it up because you messed up your life. Or I could have done what I did and just one foot in front of the other and take it one step at a time. And the road was extremely tough. But if you do the hard work, and more importantly, if you believe in yourself, your dreams and your vision for your life is going to come true. And so my message to those out there is not just about those individuals who want to go into the law. What I will say is it doesn't matter what you want to do. You want to be an artist, be the best darn artist you can. Promote the heck out of yourself. You want to start a podcast? Own it.
Yes.
Do it. You want to own a McDonald's? Okay, start working at the McDonald's first. Get that foundation. But that's my true message to the listeners. And we're all in this together as a community. Yeah.
Wow.
Basically, to sum it up, she said, get off your butt, guys. Go
Wow.
do something with your life.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate you, Pahoua, for joining us on this podcast. Very inspirational, and that's
Very.
what you highlight a lot of great things that that can reflect on our community, just not the Southeast Asian, but community, your personal experience, and then to continue pursuing your passion and the stuff that you want to do. Be original. Thank you for coming on our show. Pahoua does not have a social media due to her work, but if you guys have any question regarding any legal stuff or how to connect or even to get into law school, feel free to reach out to us on our social media platform, right? Anything else you want to add, Toby?
Easiest way to get a hold of her is to break some laws.
Yeah.
No.
She'll make sure. No, just
You guys can do a field trip to my courtroom without breaking laws.
Oh, that's
yeah.
easier. Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll
my
get a
bad,
tour.
guys. My bad, guys.
The now session
Yeah.
will get a tour going.
Yeah,
We'll
let's
sign.
do a tour.
Let's do a tour, right?
I'm going about this all wrong, guys.
All right, folks.
All right, guys.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Please leave a comment. Have a wonderful freaking day. All right.
Yep,
We'll see
see
you
ya.
later. And go Giants. Let's
Yep.
go.
Thank you.